Alrighty, so here's the engine, and now right up along there, I put a little piece of wire that's going to represent part of, I think, the radiator. It's going to attach to the radiator. So it's part of the cooling system. That's going to go right there. So what I did was I took some of this fly tying little rubber pieces, found it at the local sports place, and I cut a little tiny piece off, two pieces, so that I can stick those little rubber pieces on the ends of the wire. That makes it look like a fitting that you'd use for radiator stuff. At least that's what I'm pretending. So all you have to do is boop, stick it in, skewer it, and skewer the other side. And then you've got this piece that when you put it on the engine and it'll be painted and stuff, those little pieces will be painted black, and then the wire there is going to be painted like a copper color. Then that would look good. So there I am adding a little bit of glue, super glue, to where it's supposed to go. Now I'm kind of putting it kind of in general where it's supposed to go. These are all details that weren't on the model, so it isn't really designed for these. But what it's going to do is give you the impression rather than, I'm going for impression rather than absolute fidelity, which is okay. I'm okay with that. So there it is on top all the way, and there are those two little pieces on the ends, and it goes right along like so, above the exhausts. Those exhausts, by the way, are puny. The pictures I've seen of the real airplane, they're much bigger than that. Might change them. And here I found some copper paint, copperish looking paint, and I'm just very deftly and carefully moving that along, and it paints up nice. It's a nice little splash of different color on the engine. It gives it a little bit of life, I think. I kind of like it. Especially since this side is the boring side. The other side has the carburetors and the piston rods. This side's kind of a wallflower. Now, that fuse wire, it's 1mm fuse wire, could have been a little thicker, I think. But this is what I'm going to use to put in my manifolds. I think they're manifolds that go along all 6 cylinders in a pair of them. So, and they got to be shaped. Now, when I take fuse wire off, it's always kind of crooked, but all you have to do, I might have shown this before, is take a straight edge and roll it like that, and lo and behold, you get a nice straight piece. It's really cool. I didn't make that up. I saw that somewhere, and it's a great little trick. So now this stuff is very bendy. So I take a piece of round piano wire to act as a backing, and I roll it over so I can have a nice smooth curve. Otherwise, it'll basically cut into a flat angle. And then I cut off a piece to make it what I think is about the right size. I made one on the other side, so I'm trying to sort of make them about even, because I figure the one I kind of test fit, and it seemed to fit just fine. Be deep enough and actually touch the cylinder. Anyway, and then I put it up where it's gonna go, and I make a little line or a little dot with the Sharpie to let me know approximately where I got to make the other bend. And so I get a little dot, and now I can see where that's supposed to go. I put my wire under there, bend it down so that it's in the right same angle as the other side, and then I go about cutting it off the same way, and then you test fit it. And in my case, this one, for purposes of the video, didn't actually fit well. So I went back to the back one and just showing you. Add a little glue to the ends there, super glue, and I just put them in. Now notice those are actually going in between piston rods, like straddling them, and they're not supposed to be like that. Again, the geometry isn't quite right. However, I'm okay with that. Again, that's going to look just fine. Now, there's one little piece that has to go right in the center to touch the middle cylinder. So I cut a tiny little piece out and slid it in there, and just kind of do it a few times till it makes it so that it fits. Once it fits, I use some white glue on this, because again, this is not going to have to be, you're not going to chin yourself on it, as my mother used to say. It just has to look good. Complete the illusion. And put a little glue in there, and that glue again is nice because it dries clear, so if you put too much on, it really doesn't matter. Put your little piece in and squeeze it in place. Should fit with a few test fittings, and I'm just kind of making sure it is connected into the right place and that it looks good. And all the time, of course, you're making sure that this little manifold is perpendicular to the cylinders and straight and all that good stuff. Otherwise, again, your eye will notice and it will pick it up and think that that's a little wonky. So there's one. Now, there's another vertical piece that goes on each of these that attaches to the carburetor body, whatever that little square piece is. So the same thing, make a little line, make a little dot, approximate, and cut. You always cut longer because you can always make it shorter. In this case, I think, as I recall, I cut it and it was too short. So takes a couple times to get these. But these wires you see are super easy to cut. I mean, you can look at them and they cut. So they're very bendy, very nice to use for little details like this. And so I'm just test fitting it, and then I put some glue on it and slide it in place. There's a spot on that carburetor body that shows, or that box that shows exactly where it's supposed to go, and then the other part is slid underneath the manifold, and there it is. There's one side on, so it looks great. Again, it's not perfect, and it's not, it wouldn't work on the real one, but it looks pretty good. I'm going to paint them black when I'm done. I think black is probably the best. They were also sometimes wrapped in something like asbestos-y stuff. So there's that side looking good with the little plumbing on top. Gives like a little color. That's the boring side because there's no piston rods or anything. And then here's the busy side, and you can see the exhaust manifolds, what I think are exhaust manifolds, are black and feeding down into that carburetor box. And again, that completes the illusion. And the engine basically is done at that point. You probably could do more and do it more detailed, but the fun part's sticking it on this trapeze and just taking a look at it and seeing how it looks when it's done. And man, it's gonna look cool. It looks heavy. It looks like it's made of metal. The cylinders, I think, should be sort of a coppery, goldish color. At least the ones that I've seen are in the books are that way. But this I'm just using what was in the kit, and that's fine. It'll pass. But you can see that's what it's going to look like when it's all done. So the next thing to do is attach the old boy, and it goes right on the end like that. Cool. So here we are next day, and I'm going to attach it. Now, when I practice fit it, I noticed it was crooked, looking at it from the front. It leaned. So what I had to do was, on the one side here, I added a couple pieces of cardboard along each of the lugs. You can see them there. They don't look bad at all. I painted them and they look fine. But those were needed in order to make it so that the cylinders were vertical. So now I just drop it on there. I've checked this a few times. It's good. Since the engine is not going to be doing anything, just sitting there taking up space and hopefully letting you ogle it when it's all done, it doesn't need to be put on with bolts and super glue and epoxy. It just needs to be glued on. So I'm going to use the white glue, which is plenty strong, the tacky glue. And all I do here is roll it over and just place it where I think they should go. Now the back lug should be very close to the back, almost flush based on the pictures I've seen. And I think I actually have it a little forward, but that's okay. Now you just play around, making sure, here I'm making sure that it is in fact vertical. Cylinders are vertical, and I'm trying to show you here. It's actually turned out okay. So you can see that they're relatively vertical. I gotta work on my fin back there. The wires are pulling it over. Anyway, making sure that's good, and then kind of pushing on it, making sure that there's glue making contact. I can clean up a few places where the glue is squooging out, which is easy to do. And just really spending the time to make sure it's straight from the top so that the drivers, the pieces going through to attach to the starter and to the prop have to be along the fuselage line. They can't be crooked. Again, it's something that you'll definitely see. And you see the engine is a little loose, and I'm trying to make sure that once it dries, it's going to be good. And so I push on this thing to make sure everything's in contact and hold it a few times, and then the glue takes hold very quickly. And you just got to make sure it's right, and you just kind of keep dinking around with it. If everything was perfect, if the lugs were not weak, if I had a perfect everything, you wouldn't need to do all this, but in reality, you got to sort of fiddle with it. But it looks great. And then you just dry it on there, and then the engine's on. I've turned it around upside down since these pictures are taken. Works great.